We welcome all our listeners to yet another interesting episode on developing foundational literacy. Before we begin this discussion, I would like everybody to take a minute, close your eyes, and think about your childhood days. What are some of the memories that come to your mind? Maybe some of you might be imagining yourselves playing in a park with your friends. Some of you may be imagining yourselves waiting in your uniforms for the school bus to come. While others might be thinking that, they're making paper boats and jumping in the puddles during the rainy season. Personally, for me, the first memory that crosses my mind is listening to bedtime stories. My grandmother and my father used to read lots of stories to me every day, and that is what made me fall in love with books right from an early age. We all say that for children, the early years are the most formative years in every child's life, and there is an immense amount of cognitive as well as socio emotional development in those early years. So, the main question here is what can we do to help children develop their foundational literacy skills as well as their emotional capacities? And we need not wait any more to discuss this because we have with us here three wonderful speakers who are going to throw light on a very interesting and exciting project. Have you heard of libraries for the community and by the community? I'm sure it sounds so interesting. But before we get started, I would like to introduce our speakers. Ms.Mamata Paigankar has been an educator for 17 years in the NGO sector. She's a postgraduate in commerce and a certified storyteller who has been working in Muktangan since 2016 in the teacher training department, and she has also been a part of many outreach projects. Currently, she's the leader of the library department and is actively involved in various projects such as the volunteer reading program, the Muktangan mobile library, library for alumni, a book club for teachers, and now the project that we are going to talk about. I won't reveal much. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I think we'll begin and lead to the discussion. The first point I would like to bring about here is that class 3, we say, is considered an inflection point by when children are expected to learn to read so that they can read to learn after that. And we've noticed that those children who fail to attain these basic literacy skills by grade 3, they find it really difficult to catch up later in their later years, and the risk of dropping out of school is very high. This makes us realize, it is so important to provide learning opportunities for them right from an early age, and books are very crucial in this process. So, without any more wait, we would like to know, Ms. Mamata, from you about this very interesting project that is helping children develop their foundational literacy skills.
Thank you, Shruti, for having me on this show. And also, I agree with whatever you said regarding foundational literacy and numeracy. We at Muktangan totally believe that a reading community is a learning community. Research also reveals that children's pleasure in reading is strongly influenced by reading networks and relationships, between teachers and children and children, and in some cases between children, teachers, families, and communities. So the Mohalla project came up with this thought in mind that we need to empower our communities. We wanted our communities, to learn new things and also learn about people with whom they are reading and connecting. So when little children see the people around them reading, they are in the right kind of atmosphere, right kind of environment. We believe in nurturing children's reading habit by exposing them to the right environment where there is a community of readers. Little children look at older people and they love to imitate them. So if they see their parents or their neighbors reading, automatically they just come and peep into the book. So that is what actually we wanted. As you all know that during the lockdown period, there was a lot of restrictions and children's exposure to the print or to books physically was really restricted. Some of the parents insisted that we should extend our Muktangan libraries to the children and to them also as well, because even the parents wanted to read. This created a perfect setting for the Mohalla library. We casually asked a small group of parents from each of our 7 communities whether they would be willing to handle these libraries and support us, because this involves keeping the books in a safe place and issuing the books to people visiting at odd hours. So all these problems we did tell the parents. And they were more than willing. That was really very surprising. They said, okay, we will do this for you. They said, we are going to give you a choice of books that we want, the content, language, etc. And as the need was expressed by the parents themselves, it seemed really very doable for us at Muktangan. We then told them that this library would be open to everyone in the community and not necessarily only for Muktangan children and Muktangan parents. The parents also supported the idea that they would be responsible for the books given to them. But we also told them that, even if the book is lost or any case misplaced or anything, they are not going to be held accountable. Like, we are not going to take any kind of money from them for the loss of the book. So this is how this wonderful Muktangan Mohalla project came into being.
I think that's so wonderful. And this term Mohalla library itself, it really strikes a chord with everybody. Because I think being in Mumbai and, in whichever part of India you are in, the word Mohalla seems really familiar.
Yeah, true that.
It really establishes a connect with all of us. We immediately go back to our memories of being with our friends in a tapri, having tea, spending time in the mohalla, chit-chatting with everybody. So was there a very conscious thought behind this name?
No, actually there was no conscious thought. Mohalla itself means community in an Indian language, and it just means a togetherness, a bonding that should be there, and not necessarily just because we're staying with each other, but because of more reasons. So when books come into the picture, reading and then discussing about the books also comes into the picture.
And I think the point that you have brought out here about the relationships that we build as a result of books, it is really true, because I remember that growing up, when my grandmother used to read stories to me, I instantly got so close to her, so attached to her, and whenever I remember my memories with my grandmother, it's always, the books always come into the picture, the stories that she used to tell me. She used to create a magical world with her with her actions and with telling me stories about different gods, about different religions, about I particularly remember this one story she told me about the monkey and the cap seller, and she used to tell me all different colored caps that the cap seller had, and
exactly.
I still remember that story. It is so fresh in my mind, and it just puts a smile on my face when I think about it.
Exactly, and that is the part that we actually thought is needed. Stories are something that bring joy only when they are shared with each other. And like what you were talking about is like probably a folk tale, which has gone from one generation to one generation orally. And then even besides these, there are so many different kind of stories, and to give exposure, we need to give the community different kinds of books. And only then they will know what else and what kind of stories are there in the world. Sharing is something which comes naturally. Whenever you read a story yourself, the first instinct that comes in your mind is you need to connect to someone and tell the story. Whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, you could relate to any particular character. That is what is needed, and that bonds the community. More than, I think right now in the Mohalla, probably people are discussing books and not serials and movies and stuff like that. This is what I feel.
That is really wonderful, because like you said, they're discussing books. That itself is creating a very strong foundation for creating a more aware, a more informed society. And specifically, I would like to ask you in terms of the challenges. Did you notice any challenges in the community, when it comes to reading? Like you said, the pandemic was one big challenge because children and parents missed out on this opportunity to access resources. Were there any other challenges, and how is this Mohalla library trying to bridge those gaps?
Okay. Actually, the community on a whole does face a lot of challenges because, first of all, we do not have an easy access to books, to the written word. And also, not all parents are educated. Some of them have completed their schooling only till the second or the third grade. So they find it very embarrassing borrowing small children's books from other places, and to read. And because they are now adults. As there is no open access libraries for them in and around the community they stay in, it was very difficult for them to actually get a book or even start reading. The libraries, even if they charge fees for reading, which they cannot afford. Sometimes the timings of these libraries are also not comfortable for the parents as they do a lot of chores in the house and elsewhere. First of all, even the library community as a whole is dwindling. It's not like, earlier on we used to have so many small circulating libraries all over the place. But with the digital world coming in, all these libraries have shut down. So this is what happened, that right now our Mohalla libraries are really very convenient to all the users. So like I told you, these libraries, are there in 7 communities, and then we have 35 parents who are actually running these. Each parent volunteer houses around 32 books, age appropriate for all ages. And these books are in English, Hindi, Marathi, Telugu, Urdu. These languages were also suggested by the parents because these are the languages generally used in our community. Initially, even when we suggested keeping 150 books, there was no vacant space available where all these books could be stored. The parents then themselves decided, "Nahi, ma'am, we will keep it in our place, and then don't worry, it's just a small bundle, 30 books, we'll manage it." So they decided to keep them in the houses and then issue them to whoever wishes to read them. So the Mohalla library parents volunteers, they decided their own timing, what time someone can come to their house to take books from them, and then what time they can come to return it. So whatever problems even or challenges were there, the parents were themselves finding solutions for these problems. So, which itself was really very motivating for me to start, for us to start this Mohalla library. And reading itself is very infectious in a way, so it motivates even the non-readers to pick up books and read on their own.
Definitely. And this also shows the strength of community participation.
Yes.
When everybody comes together and really wants to drive a positive change, it is definitely possible. And we can already see from what you have been sharing that we've already sown the seeds for this change. Thank you so much for sharing these interesting updates with us on the Mohalla Library. It's a wonderful initiative, and we really look forward to discussing more on this in the coming parts. So we request all our listeners to stay tuned for the second episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shruti.